Okay, good morning, everybody. Looks like people might still be transitioning from the main session. I came over here a little bit early to work with speakers on getting on stage, and we're having a little bit of some technical issues. I apologize, but we're going to get started here. So if you joined this session, you're in the high road to food and forests. But I should say it's really more about taking the high road for immigrant workers, tribal communities, farm workers, and other hardworking individuals and communities, because this is really about being focused on the workers and trying to figure out how we can get them on a path toward career advancement through workforce development initiatives and creative partnerships. Ross, go ahead and change the slide. And if you came from the main session, you have an overview of the high road and how it focuses on equity, climate, and jobs in an intersectional way. And so today we have some amazing speakers from projects that I get to work with directly, and what we call the natural and working landscapes of California. Oh, just checking my tech here. And the slide's not moving, but that's okay. So natural working landscapes of California include our forest sector, agriculture, all the way down to the food sector, food processing, and cannabis. And so we have some leaders from those sectors representing today. And since we can't get that slide going, I'll introduce them by name as Don Jameson with the Cal Nevada Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee, the Cal Nevada JATC, Lillian Ottler with the Equitable Food Initiative, Ali Meters Knight, who is a Master Traditional Ecological Knowledge Practitioner, a member of the Machukta tribe, Sarah Miles with the United Food and Commercial Workers, as well as Jonathan Kiesel with the Sierra Institute. So without further ado, I'm going to have Don Jameson come up to the stage. Go ahead and turn your camera on, and we're going to go, if we can get everybody on stage actually at this part, and Don, go ahead and turn your mic on, and then everyone else keep your mic off and camera on, and then we'll go Don, Lillian, Sarah, just to introduce yourselves and your project. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this event. Again, I'm Don Jameson. I am the training director for a power lineman apprenticeship program. We cover both the state of California and Nevada. Our project is addressing the line clearance tree trimming industry. This is the folks that trim the trees away from the overhead power lines to prevent accidental contact, which could result in a fire, as we're all familiar with. So our program is just kicking off. We're going to be rolling this out right directly and training people to learn how to do that work safely and properly. So that's the extent of our line clearance tree trimming program.
All right, go ahead, Lillian, if you're ready.
Okay, so at this point, I'm just introducing myself. Is that the idea? Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Lillian Ottler, and I am here representing the Equitable Food Initiative, which is a skills building and certification program in the produce industry. So folks that grow and pack fruits and vegetables. And then I'll be talking more about our work with the entire produce supply chain. Good morning.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi there, I'm Sarah Miles with United Food and Commercial Workers Union. In California, we represent 150,000 of workers primarily in the food chain as well. So working adjacent to Lillian will be very exciting on this project. I am the Workforce Development Advisor over the 9 UFCW locals in California. So I support our locals initiatives and incorporate them with the state policy efforts like HRTP. Thank you, Rafa.
Okay, so I'm still trying to get 2 panelists into our meeting here, and I apologize. But so let's just start off with a couple of questions I had for you guys to delve a little bit deeper into the projects. We've had the chance to get to know each other in the project over time, and you know, it's one thing to take the High Road project's theory into practice and then implement it on the ground. And you know, often there's complex dynamics where you know, you're working with employers and you have workers on the other side of the table. There may be negotiations going on at the same exact time, and then you want to talk about workforce and how you know, you can set up long-term career pathways for your workers, but you know, you're stuck in this struggle. And so I wanted to maybe put that out there as a conversation topic of how important it is to have partnerships and in some ways policy that backs up those partnerships. And so, Dawn, I was going to kick it to you and see if you could talk about how it's been for you to implement the unit was a tree trimming certification partnership after SB 247 passed, and what is the status of your project at this point, and what is your long-term goal?
Sure. So as a result of the fires recently in California, creating all the destruction and unfortunately even some fatalities, SB 247 was passed that mandates that the people who are, well, let me back up a little bit. The electric utilities, because their power lines were involved with causing these fires, they have an aggressive vegetation management program that they're all implementing across the state, and they need to maintain the proper clearance from the power lines with these trees, which involves trimming the trees. SB 247 was passed that mandates that we need to have quality individuals doing this work who are properly trained and certified so that they know what they're doing and making sure that they do it right and do it safely. So as a result of that, ironically, we were in the process of addressing a training program for these workers even before all of this started. So it was kind of brought to the forefront, made national news with the fires and such, as everybody knows. So it kicked us into high gear to get this program up and running. We currently have a workforce now that are out there trimming the trees. So our program is going to be tasked first with evaluating the knowledge and skill and ability of our current workforce, and those that are at the journey level will receive their certification after an evaluation. Those that are not that experienced or skilled in the trade will be able to be slotted into our training program based on what they do bring to the table. And then we'll be obviously working with individuals who are brand new to the trade. Because of this vegetation management programs that are underway, there's going to be a huge growth in our industry to put more line clearance tree trimmers out there. And so we're going to be partnering with the IBEW Electrical Workers Union and the all of the tree contractors across the state that are doing this work for the electrical utilities. So this is going to result in higher paying jobs than the workers that are currently doing it. They're going to see an increase in their wages, and it's going to provide an opportunity for entry-level people without any college degrees or particular job experiences. It's going to be an entry-level program. It's going to be an 18-month training course with on-the-job training and classes and such. And they're going to be paid. Earn while you learn is kind of the model that we're going for. And eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll start scrambling to get this as a formal registered apprenticeship program. But right now, because of all of the requirements to get a program registered and the time it takes to get that formalized, we got to roll now. So right now it's going to be a certification program, and then everybody's in agreement that the end target is to make it a formal apprenticeship as soon as we can get all the registration agencies to approve the standards and such as that. So it's a great and exciting time for us, and great opportunity for people to enter into not just a job, but a career with great pay and benefits. So that's what I have.
Great. Thanks, Don. Lillian, you're doing something that is amazing to me in the agricultural industry, working to empower farm workers on leadership skills and conflict resolution. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you do that and what it's like to work with employers that support their workers?
Yeah, sure. So maybe just to give a little bit more of the background. So the EFI, the Equitable Food Initiative, came together about 10 years ago. We're governed by a multi-stakeholder board with representatives from across the supply chain. So farm worker unions and advocates, produce growers and packers, large retailers, and consumer and public interest groups that came together about 10 years ago because they all had a common interest in addressing some of the risks and inequities in the produce industry related to labor conditions, related to food safety, and related to pesticide use and pesticide management. And so created a series of standards in all of those areas that employers who want to become certified need to meet. And a central piece of our program is a worker manager, what we call a leadership team. So a team that represents all of the different people that work on an operation, all of the different jobs and processes and levels and demographics and language groups within the organization. And so the role of this leadership team is to work together to strengthen labor management and collaboration, and to educate the whole workforce in identifying and solving problems that affect compliance with the standards in all of those areas. And in the first thing that an employer needs to do if they want to become certified is create and train this team. And that's one of my roles, is to go and we work with these teams for about a week to make sure that they understand the EFI program and standards. They get training in communication and conflict management, and especially been a lot of problem-solving skills. So identifying problems that affect the standards, doing data collection and analysis, and proposing solutions and improvements. The goal is culture change throughout the company, right? The goal is to have labor management collaboration be widespread, and to have workers that are not afraid to speak up if they see things that are not going well, that are not afraid to point out problems and make suggestions, and to create this culture of continuous improvement throughout the company. And of course, that is a process. And when it does work well, we see transformation starting in the training itself. We see very shy and afraid to speak up, starting to do that, starting to more of a leadership role. We see people who have never really worked together or known each other start to get to know each other as full human beings and start to more. We see people start to communicate more across languages and cultures and get to know more about each other's work. And so over time, we've seen in companies that have had these leadership teams actively functioning for a while that we've seen the development of really strong worker leaders who can represent their coworkers, encourage their coworkers to speak up, and we've seen just a real recognition and appreciation of all and knowledge and perspective that each person brings to the team and to their work. People, everyone, especially workers, have a better understanding of how I, as a worker, fit into this company and to the industry. We have, we've seen improved communication between workers and their supervisors and managers and across all areas of these farms and operations, and just a really effective mechanism for identifying and discussing and solving problems that affect everyone in the world and the whole supply chain, and people just coming up with ideas, right, from all parts of the operation, from all their different points of view, because who knows who is better qualified to see what's going on and propose solutions than the people that are on the ground doing the work every day. And we've seen, workers who had never spoken up before participate in this team, investigate problems, and make proposals to upper management about how things can be improved in the company, and managers saying, wow, that's really valuable. Thank you. Let's work together to make that, to make those changes.
Thank you, Lillian. And I just want to celebrate the high road way of perseverance and getting Ali and Jonathan to the stage. Totally our bad of navigating Remo. The first time as a CWDB we're doing that, but you're here. Thank you for sticking with us despite Wi-Fi barriers and others. So yes, welcome. Ali, will you introduce yourself? Just a quick introduction of who you are, what you do, and then we'll come back to the work. Go ahead, Ali.
I'm a tribal member here. Can you hear me? Yeah. The tribal member in the Chippewa Territory, also known as Chico, California, and we're in County, and is also the territory of the Camp Fire 2018 is within our boundaries. I'm a TEK, traditional ecological knowledge practitioner, and a master TEK, and so I work on land management using cultural species and ecological restoration using traditional knowledge.
Jonathan, introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. Thanks everybody for your patience, and it's a pleasure to be with you all. Maybe it's the joys of being in our rural area and the limited rural broadband, but we won't go down that road any further for the moment. Jonathan Kusel, Sierra Institute for Community and Environment. I direct the organization. We're based in the Northern Sierra. We work with forested communities across the state and beyond, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this particular High Roads Training Partnership grant and process, and working with Ali and others.
We'll come back to you to talk a little bit more about the work, but I wanted to go to Sarah now and talk about UFCW. It's such a big organization representing a lot of different types of workers. Will you please just let us know who you are, what you do, and who you represent, how you go about it. And everyone else, if you can mute your mic.
Great, thank you, Rafa. So you probably think of grocery stores when you think of UFCW, and indeed that is our largest membership base. But we also have members in the food production sector, in ag and cannabis, and some healthcare, especially retail pharmacy. That's probably where hopefully you're all getting, or the vast majority of you are getting your COVID vaccine shots from our members. So our workforce training program is really excited about our HRTP. It is our first, so we're new to this, and we'll be using this grant opportunity to really lean in with our employer partners as a labor management collaboration for training. You know, creating that extra leg of a stool for training, so it doesn't. It's one of those things that everybody agrees on, so it's also easy to throw out when you're fighting over healthcare or wages in contract negotiations. So this opportunity will really allow us to come together with our employer partners and identify career pathways within industries, and as well as like superpression issues, like everybody discovering that almost 100% of our members are essential workers, as we've all learned in the last year. So what we'll be really focusing on in direct training for this grant is health and safety. Because our members are essential workers, their health and safety really translates to public health and safety. And within that, health and safety will also be looking at unintended consequences of failures of health and safety. For example, in the food processing universe and meat plants, when workers got sick, they had to shut down meat plants, and then that product was lost. And so we'll be able to explore it from the environmental perspective as well through this grant, which I'm really excited about. I'm an adjunct professor at Sacramento State University teaching climate change in geography courses. So this is a nice nexus here for us. So we'll also be bringing in environmental policy experts to highlight some issues that our workforce as well as our employers may consider in terms of how we do our jobs. So this is really an entry-level exploratory phase, but with a heavy concentration on that worker voice. So within our training partnerships, we're going to have them regionally, because while this is a statewide project, the state's big, and as Rafa indicated, our workforce tasks are broad. But so we'll be focusing on 3 regional partnerships with employers. We'll have Bay Area, Northern, Central California, and then Southern California. And then within those, we'll have worker committees to help identify what training they need, what concerns they have, and what methods of instruction meet what they need, what they can access. We'll be able to look at things like how many ELL training services do we need and in what languages. So we'll really be able to use this opportunity to suss out what we need and have targeted training going forward. Specifically for this grant, we will be, like I said, focusing on health and safety. But we also have a meat apprenticeship program in grocery stores. And so we'll be looking at where we can expand potentially apprenticeship beyond meat cutting, so the butcher aspect of grocery stores, but also we'll be creating a apprenticeship for our cannabis sector as well. And so that's something we've been working on over the years, but we're in a position with enough employer partners and support from, for example, our international, to be able to come up with a collaborative, sustainable effort in cannabis apprenticeship as well. So.
Great. Hey, thank you for the introduction to your work, Sarah. There's so much more we can get to, but I want to make sure we hear from Sierra Institute, Jonathan. You know, this is really a passion project. I know from your background, you've been working and studying and living in rural, forested Sierra Nevada communities for a long, long time. And it's very important to do the work that you're doing at this very moment in time. I know there's, you know, forest fires that are just starting and the season's upon us, and we all remember how bad it has been. And so I know you're taking a new approach to, not a new approach, actually, I'm sorry, a different approach, and not even a non-traditional approach, because I think what we're talking about here is actually more traditional than most people would think. But go ahead and tell me a little bit more about Sierra Institute and your current project, HRTP. You gotta unmute.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. Let me again thank the HRTP folks and the support for this particular project. I think Ellie and I would probably say maybe way long overdue in terms of this sort of work. And it is traditional and non-traditional in multiple ways. What we are calling the Community Revitalization Ecosystem Workforce Training Partnership, or the CREW Training Partnership, it's primarily focused on building capacity for tribal forest restoration. And partners in this project involve 6 tribes at this point. We know others are interested. We know we want to involve others in this. It involves the Sierra Institute for Community and Environment, a nonprofit, my organization, and also the Calaveras Healthy Impact Product Solutions, another nonprofit that's been working in this space for some time. It involves also the Intertribal Stewardship Workforce Initiative, or ISHWI for short, a group that's been meeting and talking about work in the woods. And Rafa, as you mentioned, I won't spend time telling people about the fires and the work that's needed in the woods. We all know that. It's essential that we get more people out there doing the work. Pardon me, I should also mention there's a couple community colleges involved in this, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when I mention the scaffolding approach that we're taking. But the goal of this is, again, to expand career opportunities. It's also to bring in folks who have been marginalized and left out of the workforce. And it is, of course, to improve landscape stewardship and implement a whole variety of fire risk reduction projects. So we lack the workforce that we need in this state to tend to the issues in California forests on private and public land. We need to think differently. We need to operate differently. And we need to bring back workers in a lot of these economically depressed communities. And there are a lot of rural, economically depressed communities throughout the forested regions of the state. So this project fulfills this need, or begins to address this need, in landscape restoration and fuels reduction work. The idea is to minimize fire risk. It's to manage for climate mitigation and forest and watershed resilience. Again, it is about building this workforce. And so we're talking about putting crews in the forest. We're talking not only basic workers, but we're talking about environmental planning specialists. We're talking about heavy equipment operators. And we're talking about, and Allie will speak to this, bringing in traditional ecological knowledge practitioners and the knowledge that informs the work. We've developed this whole scaffolding of training and opportunities. And so often what we do is we create a program and folks have to get to that program. One of the key objectives of this effort is to meet people where they are. You can't just pull them away and say, go do this program. They may have family, they may have other commitments or obligations that restrict where and how they can go. So this is to meet folks where they are. It is also to bring back tribal folks into land management. I'm going to say it. We have removed, we have exterminated, we have separated Native Americans from their land. We need to begin to respond to the inequities that are associated with that. And this project begins to do that, to bring back some of the tribal knowledge that has been ignored and that we need to improve the health and resilience of our forests. So this is, in essence, a stewardship project, and I mentioned scaffolding. The idea, we so often think of entry-level positions that may move up a couple of notches, and that's the pathway. What we want to do also is create an opportunity for folks to move from one area of work to another, to create a year-round workforce. If someone starts in doing ecological restoration or just some, what we might say, a more basic job in thinning and so forth, maybe they decide they want to do more. The community colleges come in terms of offering courses, but we are also looking at four-year institutions. The Sierra Institute starts with high schoolers. We bring 16, 17, 18-year-olds from urban areas and pair them with rural students, and they're doing work, but it also goes up into the adults. And so this whole scaffolding is to create an array of opportunities for folks to do the work that we need. I could go on, but I think I'll leave it there for now. So a variety of partners, a variety of players, and it is also about standing up native crews across the Sierra region to address this pace and scale of the work that's needed in the forest. So I'll stop there and happy to respond to questions later.
Yes, thanks, Jonathan. Okay, turn it to you, Ali. I want to ask a little bit more about what Jonathan mentioned, traditional ecological knowledge, and of which you are a master practitioner, and what that would mean to have a certification, either tribal or statewide or adaptable. What would that mean to have that as a workforce development strategy for tribes? And in terms of sovereignty and self-determination and forest stewardship. Go ahead, Ali.
Yes, good question. Ecological knowledge, TEK, science. Isn't that a brand new science? This is something that has been recently discovered. Us new natives up here, figuring ourselves out here, but also newborn, I mean, fresh or young, but also our ancestors. So our community is now just picking up and refashioning our traditional ecological knowledge and applying it pretty much climate adaptation. So when we're going to climate change, this is not the first time traditional territory has experienced climate change for thousands of years. So what has happened is we have techniques, whether it's selective about plants, drought resistant plants, fire resistance or adapted plants. For thousands of years, these plants have been selected and cultivated in this place specifically for the survival of human and for biodiversity. Now, when you're looking at today's culture, monoculture crops. So you have monocrop agriculture, and you also get monocrop forestry. And so we've started a program locally, and I have developing community programs along with certification with the tribe. So I'm taking the tribal sovereignty, my tribe sovereignty, and saying, I'm going to make it law of the land that these keystone species that make up the biodiversity within our tribal territory, this by law belongs here. So then when we get consultations under SB 18 or any of the other ones about tribal consultation through environmental impact reports, what we're actually is telling them these are the species and this is what biodiversity is. We cannot take for granted that what we have here with the model territory, that we are now looking at a different world. Do we adapt to climate change? And one of the things that we have to do is once that biodiversity is brought back ecosystems, we also have different types of crops, different types of foods. And when cultivating, thinning, and working with these things, they're called goods for services. I'm trying to do what we have done in our tribe is we have a group of 13 tribal members who are brought in this endeavor of not being in an entitlement program where we built this program and we've invited them in. They came in and built it with me. And they're the ones getting the certifications, and they're the ones meeting with Ishwi and all these other tribes to kind of how can we utilize our knowledge, our workforce, and really work within our tribal territory, because we know that sometimes county and state boundaries don't always cooperate with the changing times and with the kind of economic stress that comes when our our ecosystems are unhealthy. So looking at just our Mechoopda tribal territory, we're also looking at getting this work crew certified and knowing their traditional keystone species, how to manage it, how to do sawyering, selective thinning, how to do fire management, prescribed fire, and also be firefighting if necessary, and have all these certifications in this work team. And through the long game, being able to train anybody who touches a leaf, blade of grass in our territory, to have the knowledge that's necessary to have the healthy we originally had before contact in 1850, and return that back by showing people how to be good stewards.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you, everybody. That was really amazing. I mean, I'm so impressed by this group. It's an honor to be amongst you. Look forward to working with you on all of this stuff. I want to see if we have any questions that we can answer. Looks like, you know, we started a little late and we'll be going back, I want to say in like 5 minutes, just to give ourselves a little bit extra time for Q&A. We have one in the chat. Anyone else, please put your questions in the Q&A or the chat. A question from Jessica Grove. How do we connect our job seekers to the certificate training program statewide or in certain regions? I think that was asked to Dawn. If that's incorrect, please clarify that. But Dawn, can you take a crack at that? If people are trying to get into tree trimming, how do they go about doing that?
Right. Well, like I said, we're in the process of getting this kicked off. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to disseminate the information about these opportunities. We're going to try to partner with the community colleges as well, local resource centers, minority groups, women in trades, all the different avenues that we can possibly think of. Our website, calnevjatc.org, we'll post information on that. And then through contacts, we'll get our website and information out to as many people as we can. But we don't really have a definitive go-to at this time, but we certainly will be in the near future.
Great. Yeah, a lot of these projects, you know, you come from workforce, you've been doing this for a long, long time, but what we're trying is brand new. And so we're creating, like Jonathan said, in a different context, but very much scaffolding, or we call it infrastructure, for meeting these training needs of an evolving industry. And specifically, our goal here is to help all these industries adapt, mitigate, and become more resilient against climate change. And so these are challenges that, you know, no one can solve alone, that are advantaged with participation from a broad partnership of community, workforce professionals, as well as the employers and employees. Yes, this is very exciting. We have another question that might have popped up from Peter. Can project leaders discuss how they will formally credential trainees? Okay. Yeah, does anybody want to take a stab at that? And we'll see if there's any more questions after that.
I'll take a first shot at it while other folks are pondering. Yeah, and we have 3 different tiers for starters in terms of training opportunities, and they include what we call Basic 32. It's a SAW training, and then you're certified. There's first aid that's a part of that. And the second tier, we're talking about another kind of training that becomes part of that. So these are various categories that we have, as well as modules that we've identified, and so folks can get certified. And we also have, in partnership with Shasta College, heavy equipment operator training, where we're supporting people to go take and get the certification to operate heavy equipment. So there's a variety of different activities and different certifications that will be part of the effort that we are talking about. And there is also the TEK, and the tribes are involved in that, but we have to be careful how we characterize that certification and who is officially the certifying body.
Yeah, Rafael, if you don't mind, I'll jump in. So with UFCW, we're working primarily with incumbent workers and existing training programs. So we do have our Cal OSHA 30 training program, which members who go through that receive the Cal OSHA 30 card. Our MEAT apprenticeship program has a DAS registered apprenticeship program, so they journey out from that. And we'll be doing the same thing and building up our cannabis apprenticeship. So we're building our infrastructure in line with the state's workforce development protocols and training systems, including partnership with community colleges and other entities for existing credentials. And then after that, we will explore with our employers specific training programs and potential credentials going forward.
Hey, thanks everybody. Another question here coming in. Yes, considering individuals with disabilities who are also seeking work. I can't address that too much here, but just to say it's something that the Workforce Development Board does in general. I came from Prison to Employment program where we're helping formerly incarcerated as a specific population that involved a whole lot of work. We also have programs working with folks with disabilities coming from different barriered communities. So it's not my expertise, but it is something that's on our radar for sure. Okay, well, at this point, I want to see if anybody on the panel has a question for anybody else on the panel. Kind of a curveball, but I don't want to be the only one raising questions and issues. And I think, you know, we have an epistemic community, a community of learning, a community of practice, and moving forward. And yeah, since we're just getting started, I think that's going to be a core of our work, trying to figure out, you know, when we try and address worker voice, right? How do you do that? When you're talking about certifications, how do you do that, right? When you're assessing the impacts and the possibilities of addressing climate change, how do you do that, right? And so I'll just put it out there if anybody has a question for any of the other. Not planned, and if you don't, that's okay. Yeah, well then I have a question. So Sarah,
Talk real briefly.
go ahead.
A second. I agree, because I think this certification we all on this are state certified by the state of California, and we're not talking about tribal certifications, which is nation. And I think that really on the table, that really has to be part of the equation. We can just include federal and state certifications from Cal OSHA and from certain agencies. Never consulted with tribes, first of all, on their and the long-term gain for restoration. So even if we're going into models where for economic development, there still needs to be certification within tribal territory. What I'm doing here is just a model from one. There's not a lot of tribes building a certification program. Their keystone species. This is a new deal, but it's field testing. It's going out with me as a TEK master, and then hours with that plant and talking about working with it. The certification is launching. It's brand new, but it is legitimate. It's a sovereign nation, a nation, the federal government, and in certain ways, it's even has a it's equal to a state certification, and it's probably the only within cultural monitoring that a tribe can issue.
I appreciate that point. I know it's really important how we address doing a certificate, especially the sensitivity around traditional ecological knowledge and cultural appropriation. And so with all respect to that, the nation-to-nation relationship, you know, it's how we go about doing tribal compacts and for, you know, for those types of things. And so it is equally important that we do it for workforce, perhaps more important. Well, we are currently on a break from in the main session, and we're going a little long on this one. I want to give it up for everybody that showed up today. Thank you, participants. Thank you, panelists, especially those who had issues getting on and the perseverance that you had to get in here. I'm really glad you made it. That's the High Road way. We don't leave anybody behind. do a last call for questions here, and then we'll release you to the main session. You might be still on a little bit of a break. Any last questions, Q&A or chat? Perfect. Follow-up links.
Not just to, I just wanted to also that we're at EFI, we're super interested in this whole idea of credentialing and certification, because it's, in our industry, there really currently aren't any recognized career paths and career ladders for farm workers or any formal credentials. And so we're really interested in connecting with all of learning from you and others how you're thinking about that, because that's one of the things that we would definitely like to explore more is formal credentialing for the skills that farm workers already have, and as well as new skills that we hope to provide through our brand new HRTP program. So yeah, looking forward to talking to all of you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Certainly a myth out there that a lot of these lines of work are unskilled, and we want to demystify that and honor that and give that work dignity. As far as following up, I see a question about, how do we follow up with links to each of the panelists and their programs? We have information on our website, californiaworkforcedevelopment.ca.gov, High Road Training Partnerships, and we will follow up from this conference with additional information. We have sort of summaries at this point, one-pagers on each of the projects, but if you're interested in engaging, we can definitely make those connections. That's what we're all about. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat. Oh, Sarah's sharing a link.
TEK. Oh. Down there, tekchico.org. Chico, CICO, website that we have, and you can sign up for certifications. And here in California, and we have community base for non-tribal, and then we also have individual tribal certifications, more intimate and along folks. So, but then we also have a huge community ones. We have 2 sets, and this is the first month we're launching it. So sign in.
Yeah, thank you for that. I put the link you mentioned in the chat. And anyone who has any follow-up questions, please feel free to ask them offline or maybe even later in the Remo. I'm going to end this. Thank you so much, everybody. See you back in the main session.